The meeting of the Energy, Communications, and Technology Committee will come to order. Clerk, will you please take the attendance and do roll call?
Chair Scott.
Present.
Representatives Andrews.
Here.
Whitsitt. Neely.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Churches. Hill. Here. McDonald.
Here.
McFall.
Here.
Hersberg.
Here.
Wenzel.
Here.
Outman.
Here.
Aragona.
Here.
Bagol.
Here.
Green. Preston. Schmaltz.
Here.
Madam Clerk, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Rep. Churches makes a motion to adopt our minutes from the November 13th, 2024 committee meeting. Today, we will have a presentation by Patrice Neely, founder and CEO of GoLogic. Will you please come forward, Ms. Neely? And we'll also take testimony on House Bills 5506 through 5509, which deal with also nuclear energy. Please have a seat. You may have a seat. And if you could please push the red button so that for your mic. Thank you. You may proceed.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Patrice Neely. I am the CEO of a tech company based in Illinois, but I'm born and raised here in Detroit. And so my parents are still here, entrepreneurs for 4 decades. So I am, first giving honor to where it's due, Rep. Scott, and really happy to be here. So our company, GoLogic, is an innovative technology company that is bringing AI to the forefront of entrepreneurship and small businesses. During the pandemic in Illinois, our mayor's office, Lori Lightfoot administration at the time, tasked me with the responsibility of helping urban settings restart. So our entire state shut down, right? And it was a massive distress across entrepreneurship sectors and small businesses. And so we were tasked with helping them restart, going into communities and helping small businesses restart according to the new regulations. And what we saw firsthand was a distress across industries. It didn't matter if they were restaurants or childcare centers, right? There was really major gaps. And I'm gonna share some of those gaps. Is there a clicker?
I think if you hit the space bar.
You can hit the space bar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as we looked firsthand at this, when you talk about tech adoption, right? Technology, comparing that to Fortune 1000 companies and small businesses, we see firsthand that there's a disparity. So you're seeing large companies are adopting AI 3 times faster than small businesses. Some small businesses are scared of technology. They view it as arduous, intimidating. It's difficult to train their staff, right? Those are the words that we've heard. And so when we say, how do we help, the backbone of our economy come into this new age of technology, it really has to start with a approach that is centered around the user, right? And really closing the gap, resource gap, right? Knowledge gap. How do I know, I don't have all the skills, right? I'm good at baking bread, but I don't really know how to run a business, right? That is what we heard across the board. And so with our technology, it's called GoTackle, and we are really bringing, small business support at scale, right? And so it's data-driven, curated resources, being able to actually take the same practices, the same tools that Fortune 1000 companies are using, but applying it to a business owner that maybe never got their MBA, right? That maybe they don't even know what data is, right? What's the definition of data? I know about Google Analytics, but it's scary. I don't know how to use it, right? How do we help them apply those things to their business so that their jobs, they create more jobs, they grow revenues, right? And they have the best insights to make the best decisions. And so as we brought this together, we said, all right, how do we bring a platform that actually helps an entire state, right? Not just a city, but a state. And so we brought together this business collaboration infrastructure, merging government resources, right? Maybe there's grants and loans, right? That the small businesses really have a difficult time even completing, right? The application process and having, their P&Ls up to date. And so really helping them journey from one step to the next in an automated way, right? That gives the state data. Right? We know how powerful data is. What if we had it at a micro level? And what if it was first party data, right? What types of decisions could we as a state make based on those data sets? Now, you guys are like, man, how does this apply to us? Well, check this out. In just 2 years, and I just want to level set here, I'm saying in 2 years, when normally this amount of performance and results takes 7 years, right? That's what the data says. So in 2 years, bringing AI to the forefront, but also merging it with a user experience that the everyday person, maybe they just have, a GED, the everyday person can apply. In Illinois, we sustained 1,801 jobs, and we created 135 new jobs. Let's talk about the revenue, right? Sales revenue. We took a population of small businesses and grew the revenue across them to $5 million. $5 million, right? In addition to that, we've been able to help entrepreneurs actually legitimize their business and create, a business bank account, and then actually helping them secure loans for their business. Those are just some of the high-level points. I want to highlight one more, is that when we talk about government-backed programs, right, programs that you're funding, right, our program has had we've seen 276% engagement, right? Increase in engagement compared to other government-backed programs. And so putting your dollars to work, right? Turning, urban settings around and helping businesses that we all, believe in really, truly be successful. So today we serve the state of Illinois, and we are going across the country because we believe that this is what small businesses need to really be sustainable, to create jobs and not fail.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that very important presentation. And we know that we do need our small businesses to succeed. So thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Representative Arizona.
Thank you for being here. And as somebody who grew up in small business, I mean, supporting small businesses because there's so many jobs that exist within small business throughout our economy, depending whether it's Illinois or Michigan. Completely understand. I think we're on the same page on that one. GoLogic, you mentioned that it's AI, right? But then you also said it kind of helps that small business owner. I love the line, I know how to make bread. I might not know how to run a business, right? Yeah. That's great. That's a great tagline. So you're using AI to help them with business functions such as like P&L statements, but then you also mentioned going out for grants. So help me out. How does that exactly work? How are you? I'm a small business. I'm the bread maker. Yeah. You're bringing AI to me. Where's my benefit? How does that work?
I love that question. What we believe to be true is that if you look across technology solutions today, it's very siloed and segmented. So what we did with GoTackle is we brought it all into one system: sales, marketing, finance, operations, and HR. Right? So what if you had one system that you were actually able to run together, right? And so think about that bread maker. They're baking bread, but what is their performance in terms of foot traffic, right? That's marketing, right? Helping them actually apply the right marketing strategies so that they hit their North Star, their goal, right? And so let's say monthly they want to generate $10,000. they put that into Go Tackle and say, listen, I want to generate 10,000. Go Tackle knows something about their business because it's connected to all of their finance software, right? So we're pulling in that data and we're like, you want to generate $10,000 a month, but you're only generating $5,000 right now. Looking at the data and then telling them step by step what they need to do, and that's where AI comes in. Just for one point of reference, sometimes business owners don't know the marketing strategies. So in a fast, automated way, it's able to say, hey, in order to hit this sales revenue, if it's realistic, right, do this. And it takes them step by step through doing it, and it's in video form. So we're using AI in a way that's aggregating the videos that they need that's gonna help them get it done. And then we're tracking that feedback loop. So what happened after that business owner executed that task? And then feeding that data back to them in terms of KPIs.
Gotcha. And the videos, are those existing videos or something that you guys have created?
No, it's existing video. So what we've done with AI is we've said, okay, how do we build an algorithm that finds the best quality, high performance content and automatically can deliver that to the business owner in a way that they can understand. That's our IP, our intellectual property, and that's just one way. Another way is the P&L. We had a business owner say, hey, I've been trying to get a loan for 2 years. I've got an advisor, public sector advisor helping me, but we still haven't gotten there. He came on Go Tackle, and it started helping him bring his bookkeeping online. They were using spreadsheets. And so he took his spreadsheet, integrated into Go Tackle. Go Tackle helped him step by step start QuickBooks, right? And with QuickBooks, he was actually able to generate a P&L. They went to the bank, they took that to the bank, and they got a $350,000 loan. Now they're opening up a brick and mortar that was vacant on the south side of Chicago. $750,000 location, right? And they've got a $350,000 loan to get started.
Gotcha.
From
Okay.
home to brick and mortar.
Yeah. One more quick question. So you mentioned you're in Illinois, and you also mentioned like some grant opportunities, like maybe hooking. So is that something where Go Tackle in Illinois, and let's say we had this here in Michigan, have you integrated somehow with whatever Illinois' MEDC is to, say here's the
Yeah.
here's the grants, we can link you up. This
Yeah.
is how this works. That type of
So
thing.
that's exactly what we're looking to do, right? So one of the areas that we saw an opportunity is in the terms of getting them grants, right? Right now, the back office work is tedious. But listen, because we have all of the data, we're able to actually auto-populate those applications, and then they sign off on it, right? So as much as possible, understanding what they need and actually giving them an automatic checklist so that they can go from, okay, I need this grant, but I don't know how to get there, to, okay, you have this already done, you have this already done, and just zip filing it to the state.
Do we have any other questions? No? Well, thank you so very much for that very important presentation on AI and small business. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we will now take up House Bills 5606 through 5609, the nuclear energy package. We have Representative Andrews and Filler here today to discuss the package. Can you please come forward? Thank you. And please begin when you are ready.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Representative Filler and I are here to talk about our bipartisan nuclear package that we've been working on with Vice Chair Wenzel, as well as Representatives McFall and Steckloff over the last year and some change, I'd say. I'm going to turn it over to Rep. Filler first to go over the first two bills in the package related to small modular reactor production tax credit, which is Vice Chair Wenzel's bill, and his bill, which creates a definition within the law for advanced modular reactors.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, committee members. I guess right off the bat, I want to go big picture, which is, you may not think about this, but Michigan is a top 10 nuclear state. We have 3 very large nuclear reactors, 2 that are working right now, and they've been providing nuclear energy to the state for about 60 years, essentially incident-free. And at the peak when they were all 3 running, about a quarter of the energy generated in the state of Michigan was from 3 nuclear plants. That's really powerful. But I think what Representative Andrews and I have seen, and many folks on the national level, is that the nuclear field is changing. And it's not just nuclear energy generation anymore. It's job creation, it's manufacturing, it's small modular reactors, which we'll talk about in a second. It's education, it's job training programs. And so Representative Andrews and I asked some of these national groups, what are you seeing at a national level? What are you seeing from states? And I guess we found 2 things. Number one, states are competing now against each other for nuclear engineers, for nuclear physicists, for labs, for siting of nuclear plants. And then number 2, every state is running their own version of bills. And so we asked for sort of, if you could make Michigan the best nuclear state for regulations, the most pro-nuclear state, what would you give us? And they gave us a bunch of bills, which we sort of pared down to these 4 that are in front of you right now. And so my bill, which is 5606, provides a definition for advanced nuclear reactors. Now, let's just talk about small modular reactors. When you think of a nuclear plant, you think of DT Fermi, a massive plant, big smokestacks as a cooling tower. And what we're seeing now is no one really wants to build those. They can, they just did in Georgia, but no one really wants to build them going forward because of the cost issues and because of the time it takes to build them. What if we could standardize and make smaller modular reactors? Now, we already know they work. Think about a naval sub. That's a small modular reactor. Other countries are already using them, China and Russia being 2 of them. But a small modular reactor is essentially the size of, well, you could say maybe the Capitol floor or smaller. And you hook that up to transmission lines. It creates a massive amount of nuclear energy. It is a reactor, although a small one. Some of the technologies don't melt down, which is very exciting when you talk about some of the worries that come up with nuclear energy. And so what we've seen is states starting to define small modular reactors in their law to say 2 things. Number one, we're open for business. If you want to put in a small modular reactor, like they're talking about at Palisades, which I believe is in your district, which would be the first SMR working in the country, which would be very exciting. You're saying to the state of Michigan, or I'm sorry, to folks who want to put an SMR in, we are open for business in the state of Michigan. The second one is to avoid confusion. Illinois went through this where they started going down the road. Illinois is the nation's #1 state for nuclear energy created. And they sort of mangled the definition to the point that they capped the amount of energy that could be created and then stopped themselves from being a pro small modular reactor state. We don't want to do that. We want Michigan to be open for business. So that is the purpose of my bill. Representative Wenzel's bill, which is not on the agenda, but I think should be mentioned because we do treat it as sort of like a part of our package, and if we're not able to get this done this year, we'd like to see it, or you'd like to see it next year. And that deals with tax credits for SMR R&D. And we're talking about, we want people to be looking at Michigan as a place where you go and study SMRs. So that's a little breakdown, and I hope you support the bills, and I hope you sort of appreciate Michigan taking a lead on nuclear energy. And Representative Andrews?
Absolutely. Yeah, and so like Representative Filler mentioned, we reached out to a lot of the nuclear energy national groups, some of the folks that are working on research on this, and we said, what else does it take to make Michigan #1? And the SMRs are a big part of it. As Representative Filler said, that's kind of the direction that the nuclear industry is moving in right now. I'm sure people have been reading a lot of the stories recently about companies like Microsoft, Meta, and Google starting to invest in nuclear technology. It's becoming something that a lot of manufacturers are looking at as they're trying to figure out how do we, still produce and build things, but do it in a way that's, clean instead of having to build more coal or something like that. But a big part of this is the workforce component. And so the remainder of the bill package deals with how do we draw this workforce into the state, because this is obviously a very specialized workforce, and it takes a lot of effort to train workers in this workforce. And we happen with the University of Michigan to have the top university nuclear and radiological program in the country in Michigan. So we train a lot of this workforce, and then they tend to leave. As is, kind of a long discussed case, in Michigan, that we train at our universities and colleges some of the best in the world, and then they go elsewhere in the country and the world. So we wanted to figure out how to reverse that. How do we keep this workforce here, and then also draw the workforce in from some of our neighboring states where they're training, nuclear and hydrogen engineers, like at Purdue or University of Ohio, and how do we get those folks to come to Michigan and stay in Michigan? So the remainder of the bills in the package would create kind of a scholarship and grant program for the universities and colleges to help draw people in to learn in those programs, and then also create a programs where if these workers stay in Michigan or come to Michigan and they stay for at least 3 years, that there would be a tax credit for them, perhaps some debt relief on their loans. That's kind of up to the department to decide, as well as the appropriations committee to kind of design that program overall. But goal being, we want to bring these workers in, we want them to stay here, and I think it's sort of a combination, like cart and a horse thing. We need to bring the industry here, but the industry says, well, do you have our workforce? I'm like, well, kind of. We train them, we just need them to stay. And then on the flip side, if the workers are willing to stay here, then that helps us say to the industry, hey, Michigan's the place that you really want to set up shop. So kind of a two-pronged approach there. And again, the overall goal is let's support our existing nuclear infrastructure, which we already have, Cook, Fermi, and Palisades, and then let's also bring this advanced reactor technology in. The hydrogen component is it comes along with the nuclear industry. A lot of the byproduct of the way nuclear energy is produced creates the kind of hydrogen that a lot of these hydrogen fuel manufacturers look at as one of the better sources. So as we're bringing nuclear technology in, it made a lot of sense to look at hydrogen as a component too. So we can do both. And of course, we have a new hydrogen site that was designated earlier this year, so something to lean into and continue to build on. We do have a lot of other testimony and experts that are going to be willing to talk on these packages today. But if there's any questions for the two of us, I think we'd love to open it up.
Thank you very much, representatives, for that presentation. We do have questions, so we will start with Representative Altman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a couple of quick questions. I guess I'll start with your bill, Representative Andrews. And you touched on this a little bit, but how do you envision these proposed grant programs ensuring that these graduates do stay in Michigan? Right?
Yeah, so I think we envisioned it in part as being like an income tax break of some kind, where if you stay in the state for 3 years, you're working in the industry for 3 years, that you would get some kind of income tax break, or perhaps a grant towards you could do a grant for housing, or you could do a grant towards student loan relief for the program that you were in. I think there's a lot of ways you could structure it, but those are sort of the things I think we envisioned initially talking about it. Is what are the things that the workforce really needs that makes it attractive to stay in Michigan. And the 3-year timeline helps somebody kind of establish themselves a little bit. You'd like to hope that if you stay here for 3 years, enough time to receive one of these, grants or tax relief, that you're here long enough that you're not just going to be like, okay, I got my relief, now I'm out of here. This is something that would then, let you set down roots and encourage you to stay in the state.
And if you don't stay in the state, what is the repayment method? Do you stick the Attorney General on them, or how does that work exactly?
We didn't build something like that in. In principle, I guess, you could try to go after them. I mean, my thought process is you just try to make it as attractive as you can for people to be here and work here, and then I tend to think that people will, fall in love with the state in the same way most of us have. And 3 years is a long time too, if you think about it. That's enough time for you to, your kids to start school, which is going to help to keep somebody here. Lets you integrate into a community. You might meet someone and get married. So we were hoping to establish a timeline that wasn't so long that it made people go, well, this isn't worth it for me to go for, but enough time that you would ideally stay once you had achieved the length.
And I would say we are competing with other states for these individuals. And if an individual has, 2 job offers from Ohio and Michigan, Michigan has a grant program and Ohio doesn't, you start thinking about things like that. So it really goes to the heart of where we're going with it.
And then just lastly, real quick, you mentioned Palisades nuclear plant. That's in your district.
Yeah, that's correct.
Do they plan to keep, or I guess kickstart their large reactor back into operation to accompany those small modular reactors, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they're currently in the process of restarting the main reactor, which I believe is on pace to be restarted by the end of next year, currently by the estimates. And at the same time, they're beginning to break ground and kind of clear the area to put in probably a couple of small modular reactors. I think the plan is for those to be online by 2030.
Yeah. Okay. And I hear they already have a purchase agreement and things are rocking and rolling. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, and Holtec actually manufactures SMRs, so that's sort of an in-house project for them.
But they were the same company that was slated to decommission it as well, right?
So Entergy originally began the decommissioning, and then Holtec purchased the plant from Entergy to decommission before deciding, that there may be an opportunity here to both turn it on and make this the first site for their advanced reactor program. Mm-hmm. So we would get to it. There's a bunch of sites that are kind of racing to be the first right now. There's a good chance that this is going to be the one that powers on first. So something that I think is going to have a lot of eyes on it nationally and globally as we're, proving the point on the technology.
Sorry.
Oh, you're all good.
Take the mic away from me.
I get it. I'm talking too much. It's all you.
When I was in, D.C. at a nuclear conference, I think I met with the Japanese delegation or something, and they said, we're all watching Palisades because they would be the first nuclear plant, I believe in the world, to be essentially decommissioned and then brought back
That's my
online,
understanding as well.
which is very exciting. And, we're proud to see there was bipartisan support from the legislature to put money towards that and federal support from the Department of Energy. Mm-hmm. So it's really exciting. I mean, we talk about Michigan being the first and leading on these things.
A quick note on that, too. If you might have read about 3 Mile Island looking at restarting one of their reactors.
Oh, no, I haven't.
So one of the 3 Mile Island reactors, not the one that had the problems, the other reactor, they're in the process of restarting alongside Microsoft, and the owners of the reactor there basically said that they would never have done this if they hadn't have seen Palisades happen. So it's already kind of starting that chain reaction.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then, of course, with Palisades coming back on, that workforce question comes up immediately, right? Like, all the workers who were there dispersed with other plants around the country. Some are coming back. They've been staffing up rapidly, but because the nuclear industry has sort of been in this long-term decline until relatively recently, the worker pool is small. Everybody's sort of competing for the same limited number of workers. And so, again, we're hoping that this is going to help expand that pool, give the universities a reason to bring more into their nuclear departments and train those certification programs at the community colleges, and then hopefully be an attraction point for others in the industry to come back to Michigan.
That's great. Thank you both.
You bet.
Thank you. Next, we have a question from Representative Hill.
Thank you. It is very important that we bring clean energy to Michigan and make sure that we're prepared for meeting our clean energy goals. I don't think I heard what you think the estimated cost of this will be to. Do you have a number?
Sorry, cost of what? Of the grant programs and some of the other educational programs?
It's undefined currently. The Appropriations Committee would have to make the final decision on how much to appropriate towards these programs. And Leo, of course, would have discretion over what they want to design in the program. So it's indeterminate in these bills. It would be something that would have to work through the appropriations process.
So
That said, and I know we talked about this yesterday. We're not talking about like $100 million grant, right? We're talking about a couple $1 million or something like that. Because when you talk about competing for individuals, trying to keep individuals in the state, it doesn't take $100 million. That doesn't hurt. But, 50,000 or 100,000 for an individual for an education and for a tax break is a really good thing.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question. So I have a suggestion. Indiana and Michigan Power owns Cook Nuclear Plant. Cook Nuclear Plant is paying $4.2 million less in local and state taxes than they did last year because of the tax tribunal. The school district there, which has 900 students, must cut 12% of its budget. So maybe they could use that money to support a currently operating nuclear plant to bring nuclear engineers here to Michigan.
I will note both Bridgman and Cook are in my district, so well aware of the situation happening down there at the schools right now. Cook's one of our largest employers in Berrien County, and they are actively bringing on more workforce. And we have someone from AEP here who can speak to some of the work they're doing to bring on more workforce right now. And of course, the tax reevaluation has been a difficult process for the whole county. It's not just the schools there that are affected by the reevaluation. And it's something that we're all having a lot of conversations about locally as well for how the schools can be supported and backstopped. I have other legislation that I'd be happy to talk with everybody about sometime related to that. Yeah, that's something that's being worked on, but I think is sort of separate from what we're talking about here. I think what we were just talking about would basically have to be a tax on the existing plant in order for that to work. What we're talking about is creating an education-related fund.
I just want to point out that this is the taxes that they were paying last year, and they are now paying $4 million less than they did last year. I do believe there is money available to address these issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a question from Representative Begol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to both your representatives for your efforts in this area. I think it's really important to Michigan. I'm a big advocate of nuclear. I think it's safe, it's reliable and clean. But I think people have some reservations about it because they're unsure of the safety aspects of it. Can you speak a little bit in regards to the safety on the nuclear side of things?
I'll just start, Representative. Great question, and I do think that's the first thing that people bring up. Like The Simpsons, where the water's green all the time. And I guess the two things I'll say is, first of all, Chernobyl, which people think about all the time, was, 40 years ago or something. The technology is remarkably better, A. And then B, we've never really had issues in Michigan, which is a wonderful testament to how they run these 3 plants. And on top of that, when we talk about SMRs, we talk about most of the designs essentially don't have a meltdown, the ability to melt down, and they sit in salt-cooled environment. And so I hope that brings understanding to people that nuclear is safe to bring to a state, and I think we're a great state to show that.
It also worth noting, we've had nuclear reactors now for closing in on 100 years, about 80 years or so. And so we've got a lot of time to study, all of this now. And, 3 Mile Island gets brought up all the time, just to reference that earlier. And all the studies that have been done since that, that leak have shown that there was basically no impact from it. And the 2 bad disasters, obviously, Chernobyl and the Fukushima ones were largely human error related and have been accounted for. You may have had a chance to see some of the plants in Michigan and the United States, but they all have Fukushima protocols now. Like Cook, for instance, has this huge building that's separate from the plant site where they keep a bunch of heavy equipment constantly fueled up and ready just in case there's some kind of disaster that requires moving debris, which was the problem at Fukushima. They couldn't get the debris clear to get to the plant to shut everything down like it needed to be. And so, I think the industry has done a really good job, particularly in the United States, of just really meeting and exceeding safety protocols. And, I grew up within the range of 2 nuclear plants, within 20, 30 miles of both Palisades and Cook. And You know, there's not increased, you know, health risks in our community. We don't have higher rates of cancers or, you know, defects or any of those things that people would always assume would happen because you're, you know, living close to a nuclear plant. And, you know, we have thousands of workers and during outages, yet more thousands of workers who are in the plant, working on the plant, doing maintenance, and they constantly screen for radiation dosage. You know, there's meters in and out of the plants, and again, we haven't seen long-term health impacts despite both of these plants being active for decades. So, you know, obviously you don't want to play fast and loose with nuclear reactors and radiation. So I think it's important that we're taking these safety protocols, but also just important to stress that they are safe. You know, this is a safe technology. It's proven itself safe, and the reality is it's safer than burning coal. You know, more radiation comes from coal dust and ash than from what you get from a nuclear plant. So to me, we're actually improving, you know, overall public health by moving towards nuclear reactors than, you know, kind of investing in some of those older technologies.
Thank you.
Next-
Just
oh,
on the small nuclear reactors, now are those vastly different than the bigger ones? Because I hear there's some more safety features to them.
No question. So first of all, some are built that they don't, essentially they don't have the ability to have a reactor meltdown, which is an exciting aspect. And we're talking about a much smaller footprint. You think about a nuclear plant, you think about Fermi, I mean, that's how many acres, right? It's huge. And when you can, say, run Dow in Midland off one small modular reactor, you cut down the amount of people who are working on the plant, you cut down on the impact on the environment. And so I would just claim it was safer and less of an impact on everything. Still spits out a remarkable amount of energy.
Yeah, and just to sort of put a topper on that, the small modular reactors, by virtue of needing to produce less electricity, it's a smaller nuclear reaction, so it's easier to control. Like Representative Filler said, some of the technologies, there's zero meltdown potential at all. And they're even looking at ways to cool them without water, so you take away that added element of needing, you know, this constant stream of water to cool them. It's a yet safer technology, and there's some of the designs that are being looked at right now would allow us to take some of the existing waste from the larger nuclear plants and burn further. So we actually could sort of, in a way, address some of the waste problem that we have now by burning the existing waste until it's even smaller. You know, there obviously is a limit, but there's a lot of, I think, exciting applications in the technology that let us approach some of the current, you know, issues that we've had.
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome. Minority Vice Chair Wenzel.
Thank you, and thank you guys for your work. I know you said we've been working on this for over a year now, and it's interesting that lately we see how Michigan is at the forefront of nuclear. You mentioned that multiple times, and it is very exciting. But we've seen recently a few other states introducing legislation very similar to this. So, you know, timing seems to be of the essence. If we don't act soon on this legislation to compete with other states, do you see this being a problem? Do you see some of our manufacturing and investments going to other states instead of here in Michigan?
Yeah, I think that's a big worry for us. I know it is for you as well. And I think, you know, your bill is one of the ones in the package that really helps with, you know, the attraction aspect here. But yeah, you know, Texas introducing a package of bills that's very identical to this. You know, Illinois took a crack at it with their definition that, you know, we think actually they got wrong, which is good for us, bad for them. But, you know, there's a lot of people waking up to this right now, I think. And as, you know, the news is constantly full of stories of, you know, I just read last night that Meta's starting their own nuclear investment program. You know, the states are waking up to this at the same time and saying, oh, this is an opportunity. And producing small modular reactors isn't exactly something you can just pick up and move once you plant it. So if we can attract manufacturers and researchers, that's going to be a long-term industry that plants in Michigan. And I think one of the benefits we have here is that a lot of these folks are looking at what's happening right now and they're saying, oh, you know, nuclear energy is getting popular again. But that's happened in the past and then it got unpopular and they don't want to have the rug pulled on them. And so in some states, you know, these packages are being introduced in a pretty partisan way. And I think ours being a a bipartisan package helps send a signal to the industry too that, control of the government isn't going to determine whether or not you have support, that Michigan's just going to be a friendly state. But I do think time is of the essence. If we don't act on this first, if New Jersey beats us to the punch on the tax credits, if Texas beats us to the punch, some of these players are going to start making decisions. And, if we're 8th to the table or 9th to the table, sure, we can put a great, set of framework into place, and then, everybody's already made their decisions.
Thank you. So what would you say is the time frame for us to move on this?
I mean, we're ready. We're ready with this piece of legislation, right, Chair? But if this became law this term, or I guess early next term, you would have people talking about Michigan as essentially the most pro-nuclear regulatory state in the country, which is a really exciting thing. And we hear that. I hear that when I went to Louisville and Chicago and D.C., people would say, wow, we see that Michigan package that got put in by the bipartisan package. It seems like your state's really taking a lead. And so we're ready for it, and we're ready to sort of speak to it to anybody who will listen. But yeah, we'd love to see it happen sooner than later.
All right, thank you. Representative Hill.
Thank you. Again, I do believe that we need to be moving towards clean energy. I've demonstrated that, I think, again and again here on this committee. And my concerns are mostly, as noted, I hear now that Meta is starting its own nuclear investment program. So if Meta is starting a program, the Cook nuclear plant has $4 million that it didn't have last year. I have not heard us, and I hear that we are competing with other states. Is the question on the table how Michigan supports businesses that are not headquartered in Michigan so that they come to Michigan? Is that the question on the table?
The first thing that you brought up, I don't know another way to say this, but I guess we can't fix everything in one bill package. This is a relatively small bill package that deals with the definition on SMRs and possibly some grant funding. It seems like your issue with some of the tax issues, which again I'm not familiar with, it's not my area, is a different thing. And so we want companies in Michigan to succeed that have investment in nuclear. We want companies like Meta and Google and Amazon to think positively about coming to Michigan at the same time. So kind of want both to happen.
And then on the waste question, there has been considerable activity on nuclear waste in Southeast Michigan. The question of what was happening at that landfill and the transport of nuclear waste in particular. So I hear now that nuclear waste is going to be brought into Michigan, which is my understanding is the issue of what was the biggest concern in Southeast Michigan. Can you please address that?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I want to say is we have nuclear waste sitting in Michigan right now because we have nuclear plants, and it is incredibly, incredibly minimal in comparative to the amount of energy that's been created in a clean manner in the state of Michigan. And it sits in triple encased concrete, and of course, we all had a dream about the mountain in Arizona or Nevada, Yucca Mountain, where the federal government was going to take nuclear waste and bury it. Harry Reid killed that 15 years ago, and I'm very sad. So that waste continues to sit. And so that's been my experience. Minimal amount of waste from nuclear that sits. I have not dealt into the Southeast Michigan issue as much. Joey, do you have a little more on that? Yeah.
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, the nuclear waste being brought in Southeast Michigan was related to military programs. Nobody's moving power plant related nuclear waste around. The current protocol is that it's stored on site. So if you go to Cook or Palisades or Fermi, they have an area, big slabs cordoned off where the nuclear waste is held in giant concrete casks that are enormous and thick and basically like bomb-proof, literally bomb-proof. And so any waste produced by a plant, there's a storage plan already in place, and that stuff doesn't get moved around. Those casks are very difficult to move, too. They're very, very heavy. So I think what we're talking about here with power production I'll note the SMR waste byproduct is extraordinarily small because you're talking about smaller scale reactions in the first place. That waste is not getting transported interstate and moved around. And what's happening in Southeast Michigan, I think it was even, I read it was related to the Manhattan Project. So, I mean, we're talking about military grade stuff and contracts that go back a long ways. Not to say that, there isn't an issue that needs to be addressed there, but I think it's a completely separate set of circumstances from what we're talking about with civilian power.
So I guess I'm confused. You did just say that waste would be transported and burned.
No, I didn't say waste would be transported and burned. I said there was a possibility with small modular reactors, depending on the technology that you use, that you could reuse some of the waste byproduct and diminish the amount of waste by reusing some of it. I'm not saying that that is going to happen. I'm not saying that we're going to start interstate transporting of waste. I'm saying that it is a possible application of the technology. We also have nuclear waste stored in Michigan already, so if we wanted to go down that route, if a technology allowed for it, we don't need to interstate transport a bunch of it in. We've got plenty to use from the production that's happened over decades. But that's not even it's not a guaranteed thing either. I mean, it's among the exciting applications of the technology, not something that we're absolutely going to do.
Okay, that's a really important clarification. Thank you.
Representative Schmaltz.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, representatives. We were already on board, Graham. You didn't have to bring some extra with you, but welcome. We're glad you're here. You talked about the safety issue, which I think the general public obviously is most concerned with. What other opposition have you had, if any, to this?
Yeah, I'm going to talk now in a second.
He's always talking.
Cost is the biggest one I've seen on nuclear, which I think is the dream on SMRs, because Georgia puts in this nuclear plant. It's going to be great. It's going to pump out clean, reliable energy. But it was supposed to be $20 million and ended up being, or $20 billion. It ended up being $30 billion broadly. The magic of the SMR concept, and no one wants to be the first one to put one in because it will be $3 billion, and then everyone will say, okay, now we standardize. So the problem with nuclear plants is they're all different, and that leads to these incredibly huge parts having to manufacture specially. The magic of the SMR is they'll be standardized. So as a design gets approved at the NRC, and then the manufacturing component goes in, or the manufacturing goes into, okay, we build, this 10-foot wall and this 20-foot wall, and then we put squares in. And that is just going to cut down the cost remarkably, and also, of course, the size. But that's really the opposition that I've seen out there. Frankly, we've seen in the last year more pro-nuclear than I've ever seen because of these data centers, and the people who, or the companies that want to do these great data centers want to run them off clean energy. And SMRs and nuclear energy is probably their best bet because it's so reliable and consistent.
Yeah, and the federal government has made good motion towards making the siting of nuclear plants easier and cleaning up a lot of the kind of hurdles and red tape that's brought some of those costs with it. So I think there's some positives there that the feds there's a lot of this regulation around siting and construction is federally mandated with nuclear energy. So we need the feds to help make it easier and more cost effective, and that's happening. So the cost element's getting addressed, and of course, you always get opposition from the traditionally anti-nuclear types of groups. We've even had those around Palisades. That we're bringing millions of dollars in tax revenue back to a community and hiring thousands of people with six-figure jobs, and there are groups that are opposed to that. It's you take what you get.
Thank you.
All right. Any more questions? No? All right. Well, thank you, Representatives Andrew and Filler, and your little one. We appreciate your testimony. You're welcome. Next up, we'll hear from Mike O'Brien from AEP. Will you please come forward and begin when you are ready? Thank you. And if we could keep it to maybe 3 minutes or so, that'd be great. Thanks.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. As you indicated, Mike O'Brien from Indiana Michigan Power, which is an operating company of American Electric Power, the parent company that operates in 11 states across America. For those that don't know, I&M has its service territory on the extreme southwest portion of the state. We serve about 120,000 customers, and we are 100% carbon free. We operate the DC Cook plant in Bridgman, which puts out about 2,276 megawatts of electricity. It's the largest nuclear plant in the state of Michigan. And we also have a solar farm and some hydroelectric facilities in the state. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and talk about how this package kind of implicates our operations and what benefits it provides going forward. I wanted to thank Representative Hill for identifying another issue, which, as Representative Andrews has indicated, is kind of dealt with in different legislation, but just recognizing that issue and, you know, rest assured that the company is interested in paying its legally required taxes in every situation and has the ability to seek redress with the tax assessors as tax assessment office, which every citizen in the state of Michigan has, both individually and every company. But more than that, it represents an issue of a cost of operating, just as investment is a cost of operating, just as a cost of employment. And those last couple of items are something that I think this package really identifies and promotes head on. As Representative Andrews indicated, there's a couple of bills that work in conjunction, which basically create a more robust possible employment pool. Cook Nuclear Plant is down a few dozen employees in the last year. It's a very competitive environment. Engineers look at opportunities in the high-tech energy, and you know they've got those opportunities. They also have opportunities within the industry, and I know Holtec has garnered a few dozen employees that are working on the Palisades project, and that's predictable, you know, and it's also predictable when you look at SMR deployment, where are people going to go to hire people that can operate in advancing this new technology forward? Well, they're going to look at baseload operators, Fermi and Palisades if it comes back online, when it comes back online, and also DC Cook. Those folks are great candidates to work on these SMR projects in the future. So with that as a backdrop, you know, the company is definitely looking at, and the Cook plant is definitely looking at, you know, backfilling some of these employees. Historically, it was kind of easier to attract people mid-career. It's not so easy to do that anymore, so we look at more college graduates and what can we do to get those folks with the requisite education to make them more attractive to working in the nuclear energy industry, and also, as Representative Andrews has indicated, give them that incentive, whether it's a grant, whether it's housing stipulation, whether it's an income tax break, something that says if you work here for 3 years, you'll get that benefit, and that 3-year period is important because it takes about 18 months to get someone in as a college graduate and kind of get them trained up so that they know and understand their job at a nuclear plant. And they're an effective employee, so a 3-year time commitment, I think, really fits nicely with that. The other side of the equation is Representative Wenzel's bill on providing 15% tax credit for research and development. With any deployment, there's a lot of different technologies out there. Each company has to look and evaluate the facts and circumstances as it relates to their company. What technology makes the most sense for us? What economically makes the most sense for us and our customer base? And so that 15% R&D tax credit is definitely a very important tool in the toolbox overall in making those decisions as the company goes forward. So that's a quick overview, and I'll be happy to answer, try to answer any questions that members have.
Representative Hill.
Thank you. Thank you, and I do will continue to, I really appreciate the hard work that people have to do to run these facilities. They're very technologically advanced, and there is no doubt that it takes not just the PhDs running nuclear plants, but you need union workers running plants. There's all the making sure that all the joints are right and the concrete is appropriate. Those are really, really important issues, and I really appreciate the workforce that goes into these incredibly complex facilities. However, in a 900-person school district, how are those children going to be prepared for those jobs when they have lost 12% of their funding?
As previous,
And to bring up the question of tax payment, I believe I know my property taxes are about $4,000. So 12% of that is not that much of a cut. I am not sure how much my state taxes will be this year, and who knows what my state taxes will be next year. But, excuse me, $4 million?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. As indicated, it's a question that deals with a subject matter that's not within these bills, but I'll just indicate that the process that you talk about and are concerned with there involved the property tax assessment in the state of Michigan. We went through the normal processes as other utility companies have done previously. And I understand that the local school district is receive less revenue relative than what they have. But I do think that discussion, and we look forward to having those discussions, but I do think that discussion is at best reserved for the proper forum in dealing with that. I do recognize that it points out a cost of doing business. And the company's, as I indicated, the company is committed to paying appropriate costs, appropriate taxes in every situation, recognizing that if every expense that we have has to be approved by the Michigan Public Service Commission. So going forward, if there's any additional or deletion of costs or expenses, that does get netted out so that our customers are protected. But the underlying issue that you speak of, I'm not really able to speak in earnest on that. But I do echo that those are discussions that are ongoing, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
May I ask one follow-up?
Is it
Do
a
you not get
continual-
all of your costs recovered when you go in front of the Public Service Commission every year?
There are disallowances sometimes on the Public Service Commission. It's the nature of that process is there's a lot of stakeholders. You can go in and apply and say, here are our expenses, and that is litigated rigorously. And sometimes there are costs that are disallowed. There's no question about it. That happens.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I appreciate it. We're going to move on, but thank you so much. All right. Next, we have on Zoom Dr. Todd Allen, who's a professor and chair of the Department of Nuclear Energy and Radiological Sciences at the University of Michigan. Welcome. Thank you. You may proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Scott, Majority Vice Chair Andrews, Minority Chair Wenzel. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this comprehensive legislative package to encourage nuclear energy generation in the state. The views expressed this morning are my own. I'm the chair of the Department of Nuclear Engineering and Radiological Sciences at the University of Michigan, the #1 ranked department in the nation. Before starting a research and academic career, my initial training in nuclear energy was as a nuclear trained submarine officer in the United States Navy. I also co-lead the university's hydrogen initiative called My Hydrogen. Over the last decade, support for nuclear energy has grown across the nation and the world. 31 countries have co-signed a commitment to triple the use of nuclear energy. In September 2024, at the New York Climate Week, 14 of the world's largest banks and financial institutions from 5 countries signaled their support for tripling global nuclear capacity. This support from nuclear energy comes from many different viewpoints. For some, it's to produce cleaner energy with reduced emissions. For some, it's to ensure a reliable energy system that comes from using a variety of energy production technologies. For some, it comes from wanting to ensure the U.S. is a leader in nuclear technology and able to set international norms for using the technology. For some, it's the good-paying jobs associated with nuclear energy and its associated supply chains. Within the past year, many data companies, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, have publicly announced their plans to use nuclear energy to power the fast-growing needs of their data centers. This non-traditional use of nuclear energy is an expansion also seen in Dow's plan to use nuclear energy for heat. The state has shown support for nuclear energy through Michigan Public Act number 235 of 2023, which establishes a clean energy standard of 80% by 2035 and 100% by 2040, with nuclear energy defined as a clean energy system. The state has also supported the restart of the Palisades nuclear power station. The U.S. Department of Energy estimates that the need for energy-trained workforce to support this tripling equates to about 375,000 construction and operation jobs by 2050. This legislative package does 3 important things. Incentivizes Michigan businesses to become part of the supply chain, associated with the growth of nuclear energy, encourages the growth in workforce training and retention programs to support nuclear energy in the state, and clarifies the siting requirements for advanced nuclear systems. These are all key steps for the state to take a leadership role in this technology. Our department has long led the nation in graduating leaders in the advancement of use of nuclear technology. I'll point out that over this last year, our undergraduate population grew by about 50%. So young people in this country are excited to be part of nuclear. And I think this legislation provides incentives to keep this talent in the state. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? No? All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Allen, for your presentation. We appreciate it. Thank you. Going to reading cards. All right, we have people wanting to speak. Can we have Angela Wojcicki in support of the bill from DTE VP Planning and Development? Welcome. Thank you. And if we can kind of keep it a little brief, that'd be helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairwoman Scott and Vice Chairs Andrews and Wenzel and committee members. I am Angela Wojtowicz. I'm Vice President of Business Planning and Development for DTE Energy, and I'm here to support the packages before you on the nuclear bills. We do believe these packages, this package of bills will help stimulate nuclear in the state of Michigan. We have the Fermi nuclear plant, which will be a vital part, it currently is and will be a vital part of our generation portfolio going forward. It's located in Monroe. It's about 1,200 megawatts and can serve customers 24/7 clean energy up to about 1 million customers. It's one of the largest carbon-free generating resources in the state. We employ 760 employees full-time with a very diverse skill set. We have operators, engineers, radiation protection specialists, INC technicians, several skill sets that we think this bill could support. In 2023 alone, we avoided 8 million metric tons of carbon emissions, the equivalent of 1.7 million vehicles off the road, gas vehicles off the road. Sorry, I'm trying to go quickly here. We have refueling outages every 24 months, and during those refueling outages, we bring in 1,000 to 1,500 additional employees, adding to the local economy there. We have the potential to not only expand the life of Fermi, but to expand the output of Fermi as well. We currently have a license to operate that starts next year to operate through 2045. Starting next year, we can apply for an extension to have that plant operate through 2065. In addition, we have the opportunity to expand the output an additional 15%, another 150 or 60 megawatts on top of what we currently have today. We have a Fermi 3 license that we maintain. We could also repurpose a portion of that license to house an additional 3 to 6 SMRs on the site. So there's a huge potential for Fermi in our future. In our integrated resource planning, we know that we will need to add firm resources to support the retirement of our coal units. Renewables alone cannot do it. Nuclear is the source that can get us to net zero in the future. It is a firm resource. We have robust modeling that we do that looks at grid stability, 24/7 energy, and nuclear can supply that going forward. We file those plans every 5 years. Our next one will be filed at the end of 2026. And we will be evaluating all technologies in that plan, but we see nuclear being part of our future. We believe your packages, the package for you today will stimulate the future of Fermi, the future of additional nuclear in the state of Michigan, and we support the package. Sorry, was that? Try to be very quick there. I thank you for your time today, and I'll open it to questions if you have any.
Any questions? No? Thank you so very much for your testimony of support. We appreciate that. Next, we will have, in support of the bill, Mike Alanis from the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. excuse me, Mike Alamo. I'm sorry. Well, sorry.
Thank you, members of the House Energy Committee. Appreciate the time today. I'll be really brief because you had a lot of great expertise, including sponsors of the bill, speak to the many benefits of nuclear energy writ large, but certainly, you know, the opportunity to innovate and create a more scalable model for nuclear energy in SMR, AMR technology. So, you know, we have been for quite some time now working to support the reopening of the Palisades nuclear plant, which has been delivering 800 megawatts of baseload generation to Southwest Michigan. You know, it's a phenomenal project, a phenomenal opportunity to be the first reopened nuclear plant in the country. We strongly support that reopening. Representative and I were in the Palisades plant where, you know, we had Secretary Granholm speak about, you know, the opportunity for the federal government assistance to reopen it. We were in the room where SMRs will be installed in the future. And so it was really exciting to see not only the opportunity in the immediate future of reopening the plant, but the future proofing that went into the development of that plant and program, and to know that you know, this is going to continue to provide exponential benefits for that region going forward. I think everybody has gotten a pretty good understanding of what SMR technology is. It's certainly something that you know, has the potential to be a game changer in Michigan and the country's energy portfolio. And, you know, right now, again, as it was pointed out, you know, some of the countries that are doing this more aggressively are countries we compete with on a global scale, like Russia, China, and India. And so I think there's a strong national, regional, national, and global competitiveness argument to supporting this technology. We have 50 companies and more than that if you include think tanks and organizations that are working on SMR technology throughout the country. A lot of them coastal, but a lot of them in the middle of the country as well. And as it was mentioned, Holtec, who now owns Palisades but is based out of Jupiter, Florida, are, you know, leading the charge on developing you know, SMR technology that will be ready to be commercialized. The last thing I'll just say is that, you know, we've been engaged in the policy discussions over the last couple of years around, you know, the state's generation portfolio mix. You know, right now we have roughly 19% of our energy coming from coal. We know that's going away by 2030. It's really important that we look at how we're going to replace, you know, 1/5 of our state's load demand. And, you know, base load dispatchable energy has really important characteristics that are needed to support particularly, you know, job creators, manufacturers, and industry that, you know, need you know, the lights to come on when they flick the switch, on demand, instantaneous power. It's a really critical characteristic of an energy portfolio, and something that nuclear energy can provide, you know, with zero carbon emissions. So strongly support the bill package, strongly support the technology, and appreciate your time. Can take any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony of support. Thank you very much. I will now read in additional cards of support. We have Ed Rivet, who was wishing to speak, but in essence of time, we cannot, but we know you're very supportive. Thank you. And he is from the Michigan Conservation Energy Forum. We have Katie Witowski from the Michigan Community College Association, not wishing to speak, but in support. We also have Chris Iannuzzi from Consumers Energy, not wishing to speak, but in support. We also have Mike Johnston from MMA in support of it, not wishing to speak. And then we also have Stephanie Johnson from UWUA in support of the bill, but not wishing to speak today. So we appreciate everyone's testimony and support of the bill package. Thank you very much. So As we close the business of the Energy, Communications, and Technology Committee, I just really want to express my gratitude as chair for each of you for your hard work and your dedication. Serving as chair of this committee has been an honor, and I'm appreciative of the collaborative spirit and commitment to excellence that each member has demonstrated, and I truly do mean that. We've tackled many pressing issues in energy, communications, and technology, including energy affordability, diversifying resources for energy production and connectivity, equality for communities, lagging in the digital access. Your contributions have been invaluable in shaping the policies and decisions that will benefit Michiganders and communities across the state for years to come. As colleagues serving together on this committee, thank you for your diverse perspectives and expertise you brought to the table. Thank you for your thought-provoking critiques, which often raised critical questions that enriched our discussions and our outcomes. And lastly, I would like to extend a special thank you to our support staff, whose tireless efforts behind the scenes ensure our meetings have been running smoothly and efficiently. Thank you, one and all, for all of your professionalism, your patience, your attention to detail, all of which have not gone unnoticed. As we move forward, I'm proud of the way we put people first in the work we've done in this committee. The progress that we've made will continue to inspire and guide us in the next legislative term. I want to thank you once again for your service, your dedication. It has been a privilege, honestly, a privilege to work alongside such talented group and committed individuals. So, with that being said, I am going to make a motion from Rep. Neely to excuse absent members today, which will be Representative Green and Representative Preston. Seeing no further business before the Energy, Communications, and Technology Committee, we will stand adjourned.